fast-paced, high-energetic, and thought-provoking presentations have allowed him to speak in conferences, annual meetings, and leadership retreats in all 50 states and countries around the world, and he's spoken to groups as large as 35,000. Bob's public sector clients include cities, municipalities, utility districts, and fire departments and state agencies. And he has some private clients to include, but are not limited to, companies like American Airlines, Frito-Lay, CBS Television, Sprint, AT&T, among others. So please give me a hand and welcome Bob this morning to come share with us.
Good morning, everybody. You know, I want to thank the Bauer family and thank Keith and 10-8 for allowing me to speak here. This is an honor to do this. When I first started working with the fire service about 25 years ago, I found something that I really like to do, and that is to sit around with chiefs and listen to your stories. You guys have the best stories. And I want to be honest with you, this is something that you may not know, but I'm probably older than most of you here, but when I sit around and listen to your stories, I feel like I'm a little kid. And I feel like I'm listening to these stories, I walk away going, wow, that was so cool. But today, I get to share with you some of my stories, some things that are very, very important to me in my life. There's a verse of scripture, it comes from Mark chapter 9, verse 27. It simply says this, "But Jesus took him by the hand and raised him, and he got up." You know, I don't know what God's going to do today in the midst of anything I'm sharing, but I hope someone today, this is for you. Jesus was walking along a road one day, and he saw a father that came up to him. This father was very distraught. And he was all upset because his son had this incredible problem. Parents, isn't it true? Our kids they're very important to us. Is this not true? And we want to make sure they're always okay. Well, this father was distraught because his son had this problem that he would go on the ground, he'd writhe around, he'd go in the fire, go in the water. And he turned to Jesus and he said, "If you can, have pity on us. Help us." Jesus turns to him and says very simply, he says, "If you can." You have to think about this. Jesus was around from the beginning, created the world, and he says, "If you can." And then Jesus says this, "All things are possible to him who believes." And then the Father says something that was so incredible, probably a prayer that some of us have prayed. It was simply this, "I do believe, help my unbelief." Have you been there? You have faith, there is a God, but you're not quite sure he will work in this situation. Not quite sure if he's really concerned about this. Or maybe you're not where you should be with him, so you're not quite sure he wants to hear this prayer. You're dealing with things at work. You've got problems with personnel. You've got problems with your budget. You've got problems maybe at home. I'm not quite sure God really is concerned about this. Lord, I do believe, help my unbelief. And then Jesus proceeds to do something that's really, really cool. He gives us a four-point sermon very quickly. Here's what it is. The first thing is, he shows us how he deals with unbelief. The first thing he does is very simply does this. It says in verse 27, "But Jesus." How many of you need a "but Jesus" today? What does a "but" do in a sentence, right? A "but" negates whatever happened previous, doesn't it? And it gets you going a whole new direction. Have you ever had someone say this to you? "You're a wonderful person, but..." What do you listen to from when the "but" goes in there? What do you listen to? You listen for the "but" on, right? But here's what happens. It says, "But Jesus came." Now what I love about this, blind Bartimaeus sitting by the side of the road, blind from birth, but Jesus came and touched his eyes and he was made well. There was a leper that had leprosy and his body was being chewed up by leprosy, but Jesus came and touched him and the man was made well. I got to tell you about my "but Jesus." That one on April 5th of this year. I said I'm not crying. Danny, this is for you. April 5th this year, 10:30 at night, I had a stroke. Do I look like I've had a stroke? I had a stroke, and I went to the hospital, and they told me I had a bleed in my basal ganglia. My right leg did not work. I could not lift my right leg. My right hand could not work, and I couldn't sign my name on the papers I needed to sign when I go to the hospital. And I was there, the neurosurgeon came in, they were going to have to do surgery on my brain, and my fiance did something that was very kind. She contacted a lot of you in this room. There's some of you folks in this room I count not as clients, I count you as friends. And you simply said this back to her. You simply said, Bob, it's in our thoughts and our prayers. Now, because of your thoughts and prayers, I have met Jesus. And my but Jesus was, the surgeon came back in the next morning when they did the surgery, and he said, something's going on here. We're not quite sure what's going on, but we're going to do another CT scan. He did another CT scan. He came back, he said, something's happening. You're getting healed a lot faster than you should be. And now here I am in front of you, and I can use my right hand, my right leg. What do you think? I got a but Jesus. How many of you need a but Jesus today? You're going in one direction, but Jesus comes and moves you going in another direction. Isn't that cool? We need a but Jesus. Second thing is, it says, but Jesus took him by the hand. He personally touched him. The word took in the original language says this. He transferred his power. Everything that was going on with that young man was transferred to Jesus. Here's what happens to a lot of people when it comes to touching. We touch him, but then we leave. But Jesus, he not only comes and touches us, but he transfers to himself that pain, that hurt, that need we have, and he gives us help. He gives us hope. Isn't that awesome? It says, but he took him by the hand, and what he did was he gave him a personal touch. Now, the personal touch that Jesus gives a lot of times when we have unbelief and we need help with faith is what I call a faith builder. He gives us that faith builder. Elijah, the prophet from the Old Testament, told King Ahab, there's going to be no rain for 3 years. And there was no rain for 3 years. There was no water anywhere. And the third year, Elijah went out and slew 450 people of his enemies with the prophets of Baal. He got tired, sat down on top of Mount Carmel, put his head between his legs, told the servant, go out and tell me what you see when you go out and look at the sea. The servant came back the first time and he said, Elijah, I don't see anything. He said, go out again. Went out again, came back, I don't see anything. Sent him out a third time, came back, I don't see anything. Sent him out a fourth time, came back, I don't see anything. How many of you, when it comes to walking with God, you go to a place, you pray something, you pray it, you pray, you go, I don't think God's hearing me. I don't think God really hears. I'm praying, nothing's happening. And you get discouraged. Did you ever get discouraged? You think, man, what am I going to do? And you think, well, maybe I should give up. I've prayed about this so much and nothing's happening. I don't know if God really is hearing me. Elijah sent us a servant the fifth time. The fifth time, servant came back and said, there's still nothing happening, Elijah. He sent him out a sixth time, came back, nothing happened. Now think about it, folks. 6 times. Now you think 6 times you're going to give up. But Elijah said to his servant, go up the 7th time. The 7th time, the servant came back and said, all I see is a cloud the size of a man's hand coming up out of the ocean. Elijah turned to the servant and said, you better go tell King Ahab, we're going to have a storm. There's going to be a big rain here. And he said, wait a minute, it was only a cloud the size of a man's hand. Here's what I know. When God helps our unbelief, he gives us something that I call a faith builder. It won't be very big, but it works. Years ago, my father had major surgery. He had his aorta valve replaced with a pig's valve and had a quadruple bypass. When he was in surgery, he had a grand mal seizure. He went into a coma. And he was in a coma. We got into his room the next day. The whole family was sitting around his bed. The neurologist came in. He looked at us and he said, I want you to know this man will never be the same. He won't talk the same. He won't walk the same. He won't think the same. He's not going to be the same man. You just got to get used to it. He's going to have a problem. Now, we were pretty discouraged. The heart surgeon came in that afternoon. And I said to the heart surgeon, I was kind of the spokesman for the families. That kind of surprised you. I was the spokesman. As I walked, I said, sir, the neurologist told us that our dad's never going to be the same. He's never going to walk the same, talk the same, be the same, think the same. He's never going to be the same. And the heart surgeon came up, put his finger in my face, got right in my face, loud enough for the whole family here, including my dad, there in a coma. He said, I want you to know this man is going to walk out of this hospital. I said, yes, sir. 4 days later, my brother and I are sitting around, and my dad loves hymns from the church, the gospel songs, the hymns. And my brother was on one side of the bed, I was on the other side of the bed, and we began to sing that old hymn, It Is Well With My Soul. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrow like sea billows roll, whatever my lot thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. And we were singing that. As we were singing, we looked at my dad, and out of his left eye, a tear rolled down his face. Now, those of you that know medicine, you say, Bob, that was an involuntary blah, 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 it happened. I don't care what you call it. For us, it was that cloud the size of a man's hand. It was that faith builder. We saw that tear. I looked at my brother. He broke down. He started weeping. And, I had to finish the song because I wanted Dad to want to hear the whole song. I kept singing. And then finally, we both just broke down. But we walked out of that room saying, God is touching our dad. He's going to walk out of this place. A month later, folks, my dad walked out of that hospital. God gave us a faith builder. A tear was all we needed. Sometimes, folks, to help your unbelief, God give you one little thing. That's all you need. And begin to build that faith. Wow, look what God is doing. Do you need a but Jesus today? Do you need a faith builder today? How about this one? It says, but Jesus took him by the hand and raised him up. He raised him. That's what I call his personal action. His personal action is in the lifting business. You know God's in the lifting business. It tells us in Psalm. The psalmist says, God is that shield about me, and he is the lifter of my head. Psalm 40, it says, verse 2, it says, I was in a pit of destruction, my feet were in the miry clay. You folks ever been in miry clay? You ever been in a lot of sticky stuff? How many of you feel stuck today? You get in that sticky place, the stuck places. What am I going to do? The psalmist says, God picked me up out of that pit of destruction, that miry clay, and he set my feet on a rock. Isn't that cool? On a firm foundation. But here's what else he did. He put a new song in my heart. What does God do? He's in the lifting business. He's not in the beating you up business. He's not in the destroying you business, kind of come down on you. But how many times when we start to worry about things and we don't know what we're going to do, and I'm not sure if I can pray because I've not really been that good of a person. I don't know if God really cares. God says, no, my job is to let you know that I love you, I forgive you, I'm here for you. I want to give you my love, my joy, my peace. How about you? You want that? He's in the lifting business. Now here's one of the problems. One of the problems is when God lifts us, our problem is where we're looking. When I was a little boy, my dad started his business. He had $300 to his name, and he didn't have much money to do anything. And so one of the first jobs Dad did, he had a house he was going to build for folks, and we were going to put our own temporary power pole in. We went out to the job site, nothing but an empty lot. Dad went over there. We had a post hole digger and a bar. And we got there. We started digging this hole for this temporary power post. We went down maybe only 4 inches. And I'm a little boy, and I'm just some of you little boys that might be in this room. I was kind of complaining. Does that kind of surprise you? I said, Dad, do we have to do this? I said, well, Dad, why don't you buy a backhoe? Get a backhoe just dig a ditch. He says, we don't have the money. How about one of those auger things? Dad, drill a hole. No, we don't have enough money. We got to do it ourselves. I go, Dad, this is ridiculous. And my dad says, where are you looking, Bob? I said, I'm looking in the hole where we're trying to dig. Dad, of course I'm looking in the hole. He said, that's your problem. I said, what do you mean my problem? He said, the problem is, Bob, you keep looking in the hole. He says, look up here. What do you see in this lot? I see dirt, and I see rocks, and I see weeds. He said, that's your problem. He says, Bob, when I look at this lot, he said, I see a home. And I see a front yard and a backyard, and I see a father sitting down reading his newspaper after a full day of work, and I see mom getting dinner ready on the table and kids having fun. He says, I see a whole family together. That's what I'm looking at. He says, your problem, Bob, is you're looking down the hole. You've got to get your head up. Sometimes when God's in a lifting business, our problem is not God lifting us. Our problem is saying, yes, God.